The member for Solomon has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for International Development and the Pacific. Given my electorate of Solomon has one of Australia's largest concentration of registered return volunteers, can the minister please outline how volunteers from Solomon are helping to improve the lives of people in developing countries?
The Minister for International Development and the Pacific.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very pleased to take this question from the member for Solomon, who I know has a very strong interest in the Returned Australian Volunteers Network and indeed those Australians that participate as Australian Volunteers for International Development. I'm pleased to advise the member that there are more than 100 members of her electorate that have participated as part of Australian Volunteers. And it's opportune that she should ask this question because this Saturday happens to be International Volunteers Day. So taking that into account, I think it's important that we reflect on what it is that Australians actually do in helping to build capacity not only across the Pacific but indeed throughout the Indo-Pacific region, because that's where the majority of Australians give of their time, give of their effort and help to train and build capacity in different countries. And I'm pleased to say that the member for Solomon's volunteers are part of the 540 volunteers that joined AVID, that is Australian Volunteers for International Development. And in fact, there are some 1,400 Australians that are giving of their time, that are giving of their intellectual property and their knowledge in their participation in international volunteering. And indeed, more than 90% of those 1,400 Australians work in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, I'm pleased to say, Mr Speaker, that I've had the unique privilege, as I've moved through the Pacific, of meeting with a number of these shining examples of what I call Aussie ambassadors. These are people who are helping to train people throughout our region. And in particular, I think of the example of Lynn. Now, Lynn is a lady from the New South Wales Central Coast who's working in Fiji, working alongside the disabled in Fiji, helping to provide them more capacity in the future to secure well-paid jobs, helping them to build their abilities and focus on the work that they do. And in that respect, an example of someone like Lynn, someone who gives of their time voluntarily to make a difference, really does set the benchmark for all of us about what we can do as Australians. Likewise, I think of Sharon, Mr Speaker. Sharon is a midwife who's volunteering her time at the National Referral Hospital in the Solomon Islands. She works as a midwife in helping to train midwives in the Solomon Islands. Another example of an Aussie who's giving of their time and literally saving lives through her work in the Solomon Islands. So I say to the member for Solomon, and indeed I say to all of the colleagues on my side of the House and the opposition members, take the time this Saturday to celebrate the great, outstanding work that Australian volunteers do. They really are shining lights when it comes to our capacity building in the region, and they deserve to be applauded.